So now that we've talked about how to conceive of the architecture of your website, app, or hopefully multi-channel service, how do you turn that into a digital product? First, we take a Sharpie marker to it. I often literally do this, taking the platform-agnostic user task map and scribbling on it for each platform we're building. You pick each element that applies to the platform you're on, and you'll end up with a diagram that is very similar, but now about the specific platform you're designing for, an app or mobile website. Cross out the parts that don't apply. Apps don't do well with classic portal-like home pages, so we got rid of that, and contact forms aren't needed because we can just send you to the email app. I do like to design by components, but we'll make it simple and assume everything you make for now is a page or a view state that you can pretend is a page because it occupies the entire viewport, or maybe a little more as you scroll through it. So now you can say this, and this, and this, and all these are pages which need individual views. One of the things to start considering is how much people love to click back. We'll talk more about that soon, but most interactions are in the body area. But as common as starting a new task is going back from where you are. This data is from browsers, but similar behavior is observed in apps. Back is the one thing people live and die by. So you should start to conceive of your interaction using the back stack model. This is formally something you deal with in app design and development, but browsers act much the same way, so it works well as a design concept for both of them. A stack of views, or pages if that helps you, exists. The user builds the stack by clicking links or opening new functions from the menu, etc. When you go back, you destroy the current view and display the previous view, or the next one down, in the stack. This is of course called history on the web, but I'm going to keep calling it the back stack here, as the concept is slightly more interesting in apps, and history isn't quite the right metaphor there. When you click an item, you open a new view and add to the stack. This concept was the reason dialogues work so well. The temporary condition is explicitly on top of the page, because new views appear on top, and the reduced size indicates it's just a temporary condition, but the previous view is waiting back there for you. Note about terminology again here. Don't call dialogues modals unless they're actually modal. There are modeless and semi-modal dialogues also. They all have their good points. So be very explicit when saying what you want built, instead of assuming or implying everything is a modal dialogue. Google is now explicitly talking about this whole concept as a UI consideration and part of their material design thing. Elements are loaded as layers. The user can perceive as they move through the system and interact with items on the page. I've seen accusations that this is pretending to be paper, so is skeuomorphism, which is apparently just uniformly bad. But as I showed, things really are in layers, so expressing that is just good design practice, using the medium in which we work accurately. There aren't a lot of apps really taking advantage of this even from Google yet, but I love the Maps implementation. Not just because it uses the action button circle thing as a separate layer, but because they default to the map being at a bit of an angle, like it's a viewport into the real world, which of course it is. Can your app act this layered at its core? For the web, be sure you support back very robustly. Don't be someone who builds a "please don't press back" dialog. Make your website support complete history use because the web doesn't give you an option. The browser always makes it available. Apps do have options. You can jump back several steps, destroy views in the stack at will, and so on. You can imagine where this might be useful. You have a checkout process where each step is committed, then the results in the next step. But be very careful. The user expectation is still for the complete stack to be available to them. If you skip past the process, the user has lost their entire entry, and they didn't expect it. Cancel guards, you might think, a dialog that says, "Are you sure you want to stop checking out?" Still, so unexpected the result isn't going to be clear. If at all possible, instead design your app to support a complete and simple stack the user can understand. And be sure to define it clearly for your developers so they don't dream up something else crazy in the end. Apps also have another interaction that can confound the backstack, the tab view. These are built into many OSs, but regardless of their ease of implementation, make perfect sense. The handset is a small view into a huge realm of information. Sliding sideways to see more just logically follows. It does so in the same logical space that a particular layer of the stack exists. A set of tab views are logically at the same level, so switching between them is not a backable function. and either no back button appears, or pressing back takes you down one level in the stack, not to a previously viewed tab. Switching back to a preview view requires explicit action, moving to the other tab view again. When your tab view is the first thing your app shows, what does back do then? Well, that brings up another thing that confuses many designers, developers, and especially product owners, but not users. When you're at the lowest level of the stack for your app or website, pressing back again leaves the website or app. You get, if you want to think of it that way, into a higher level stack. You return to the home page of your phone, or the previously visited website, or the apps that sent to you to that site, or whatever the stack says. That's not a bug. It's not a bad thing. This is expected behavior, so let it happen. Rarely is it actually important to stay on the app or on your site. If, for example, you will lose the session and they have to log in and type everything again, do not add an exit guard dialog warning them of this. Fix the fundamental problem and keep it running in the background, save their session, and so forth instead of that. And that's because we have to support user behavior and needs, not make them bend to our will. People exiting generally want to exit. People switch a lot. A lot. They may even be deeply using your app, but in a way you don't expect, so are copying from your app or site and pasting into another tool. If your app refreshes or starts over when they return to it, this is bad. If your app or site doesn't support switching well, fix it. If you don't, people will stop using it. Apps can run in the background, and many should. At least they must suspend and not exit or start over when you're backed out of. This is because mobiles are more about the user than your app. They're about interruption and task switching. They're personal and aware. So if every time you launch an app it asks who you are, or waits a while to decide what the world is up to, people are going to be annoyed. If your app does something more dynamic, if it's about ongoing status, control of remote systems like a wearable, or has information regularly updated from the internet, it should actually run in the background, doing things. This also allows it to push notifications to you, the user, which may themselves be the primary UI, or can remind you to go look at the app. Websites can also run in the background. What magic is this, you might ask? Well, none. It's all about frames of reference. You have a web server. The web server runs all the time. Your server can easily be set up to do stuff related to a user when the user doesn't have an active session on the website. Don't think of logged off users as lost to you. Remember, you can do things about them, think about them, and send them messages via email and SMS at least to give them information, update their status, or just entice them to visit you again. Next, we're going to get into interface design, finally, by discussing what sort of items you should place in each part of your page and in each layer.